Hey there, it's Amy Fox with Work in Progress Texas and creator of Bloom by Amy. And I am documenting my calorie deficit journey. And we are on week 5. And I am like tapped out today from just all the errands, working out, and also being premenstrual. And that's going to be part of the conversation too. Here's my little summary so far of a calorie deficit. And I think my fellow coaches would also agree that it freaking stinks and I hate it. And it's funny when you actually shift your mindset from chasing skinny or chasing a smaller version of yourself. And when you actually understand, like, I want to build strength. You know, if you want to build strength, you actually have to eat enough food in order to do that. So it's one of those things where you get used to that and then you take it away to a point, right? And that's when you're in a calorie deficit, which is necessary for losing weight, and it just kind of stinks. So there's a couple of things that I've had some epiphanies, especially with some current clients too, to kind of like think through. So I'm just being kind of transparent with you and being like, okay, I'm on week 5. I'm already going in and evaluating my stuff from the last week and being like, if I was coaching this person, what would I be saying? And the reoccurring theme is that, hey, you're missing your protein target because you're eating Cadbury eggs. I mean, that's just like the gist of it, like literally. Um, so far, I've held and maintained the fat loss. So if we talk about where are we at right now, 186-ish pounds plus, almost 187 is where I started. And I'm kind of landing around that 182 mark, and I'm kind of holding that. So technically, again, based on a deficit that's about, close to 15 to 20% of your maintenance calories, I should be expecting to lose about a half a pound to a pound a week on a regular basis. Of course, there's going to be fluctuations. That's why we do daily weigh-ins to kind of counteract for those and monitor those. And they have been there. I did forget to weigh myself this morning, just kind of getting rolling with things, but one day won't throw off all of the data. Um, but I feel like a lot of the times us women put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have a fast result when it comes to fat loss. And I think the reality is that if you're thinking about this in a healthy way, having these arbitrary timelines for things is, needs to go away. And yes, when we're going into a calorie deficit, there's a time frame that we're aiming for because we don't want to stay in one forever. I have a client right now. She has had just a beautiful, beautiful decline. Like she's almost lost 15 pounds in her like 12 to 16 week period of a fat loss phase. And it's just going so smoothly. And we're just about ready for a little break to kind of refeed and refuel and then keep going because I don't want the metabolism to start kind of downgrading a little bit and be like, okay, cool. We've been in this position for a while. Let's slow everything down. But like literally, she has lost almost like a pound a week every single day since she started. It's just one of the most beautiful things. But we know that that potentially will slow down. So we're kind of anticipating it and planning for it with a refeed. So you might hear reverse dieting or refeed or something like that. So it's in, and then there's other people where the fat loss is much slower. So I've got another client where they're very active person, and we're trying to find that perfect balance between caloric intake and activity levels because they are definitely someone who's consistent with their workouts, getting their steps in, biking, all these other things, and just trying to had a really good discussion today, kind of brainstorming like what does the fat loss phase look for like for this person, for this girl, right? Every fat loss phase looks different for everybody. And the reality is I've kind of come around to where I'm like, if women are okay with things slowing down just a little bit as far as like the results go, I'm leaning more towards a moderate deficit, like a more like 300 to 400 calorie drop as opposed to like 500 to 600 calorie drop because it's a matter of what is sustainable. And I think I'm kind of at a point too where I'm like, Amy, what is sustainable for you at this point? If we're still bumping up a little bit, yes, part of this could be the Cadbury eggs that maybe we need to like have your fix and like stop buying them. Um, but also like knowing that like the not hitting the protein targets is a problem. And one of the reasons why I really like tracking macros is because you can stay within your caloric targets. Like it's easier to aim for your caloric targets, but your body composition isn't going to be the way you want. And that's really important to me. I also want to maintain muscle. Now, being a little bit lower on protein during calorie deficits isn't a bad thing necessarily because our goal isn't to build muscle, but it is to maintain muscle. So I definitely have some bare minimums depending on how tall you are. For me, I'll even show you right now, like I'll just kind of show the where I'm at this point when it comes to my macros and such. I'm basically on this week averaging 110 grams, like that would be kind of a bare minimum that I would say, or bumped up just a little bit. But I'd much rather this be closer to 130 grams. And that's how it was last week, even with my caloric targets kind of being over. And that's the thing is like these events and these certain things are basically resulting in my overall calories being about 300 more than where I technically should be for what I've set for myself. So it's kind of like deciding between do I want a happy medium, maybe bump it up a little bit to like closer to 1,800 calories and just expect that there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown. Now, this week I was making adjustments because I was taking my carbohydrate sources and I bought a bunch of fruit and I got some veggies and I probably should branch out in veggies a little bit more. But I normally do like tomatoes, carrots, cucumber, maybe romaine lettuce, what else is in there? There's one other thing in there, but those are kind of my like go-to because they're easy to put next to a protein source or something like this, just easy. And then I got like pineapple and raspberries because they're finally like back to normal pricing. Strawberries, kiwi, and just kind of and pears because pears are really high in fiber. So I'm trying to rely more so on fruits and veggies, especially fruits, for carbohydrate sources. And then I found that the blueberry English muffin that I've been having is definitely a larger amount of carbohydrates than the regular English muffin. So it's closer to like 30 grams of carbs and not very much. I don't think there's very much fiber in it to balance it out. So what my goal was trying to rely more so on the fruits and veggie sources for my carbohydrates, which is something that I advise clients all the time in a calorie deficit. And that was successful. So as far as tracking that stuff goes too, but I'm also learning that like, hey, those English muffin sources or those other things are kind of getting in the way of me having flexibility with chocolate, for example. I don't think people should be depriving themselves. And just like I spoke last week, 20% of your calories can come from something like that, something that's a treat. But again, if I'm coming in here and with my my fitness pal and I'm looking at, the diary, which is cool about that I can break this down. And I see that I went 160 calories over my allotment and 24 grams of that was from carbs. Well, that's more than likely the Cadbury eggs because there's 30 grams of carbs. And look what I'm missing. I'm missing because again, carbs and protein have the same calories per gram. They're 4 calories per gram. So I missed out on that. Now, could I have drank 90 calorie whey isolate to bump this up to being like, only missing 4 grams? Sure. Did I still hit my bare minimum of almost 130 grams? Yes. But again, this kind of reoccurring theme when you're in a calorie deficit is do I need to reevaluate how often I'm having these Cadbury eggs? Or where else can I sacrifice a little bit to, remove? So for me, like removing the English muffin, that's a blueberry English muffin, that's very tasty, by the way. It's probably not the best ingredients, but here's that 30 grams of carbs. So it's kind of like, do I want 30 grams of carbs from the chocolate or do I want 30 grams of carbs from the English muffin? Now, this was a pre-workout meal. Like I had English muffin, a little bit of butter, and then some milk to kind of like get me some carbohydrates. So I'm going into the gym and I'm using that and I'm getting a little bit of protein. And then of course, post the workouts, I'm getting the rest of my food and the rest of my protein sources. And lunch is a little bit on the lighter side, and then dinner kind of rounds it out with the protein content. So it's kind of like this is what you have to do when you're kind of evaluating how compliant am I being with my calorie deficit and where are the things that I might need to kind of put on the back burner. Like maybe I buy a bunch of Cadbury eggs and I store them somewhere else or lock them up to be able to be like, okay, when I'm out of a calorie deficit, I'll have these, when I have more wiggle room. But that's what you have to do when you're having a calorie deficit. And so my expectations for weight changes also need to be adjusted. I probably need to look at more of a half a pound a week at this rate where I'm going and kind of evaluate, does it make more sense for it to be more sustainable and not feel like it's miserable. Because anyone who's telling you that a calorie deficit or restricting calories is a piece of cake is a liar. Like it's just you're just lying. You're taking away joy from people. And even though we can totally make it tolerable and doable, like everybody can do this, you can totally do this. It is still looking at the person's tendencies and making adjustments based on what do they need right now. Like one of the gals I'm talking about, we pulled her out of a calorie deficit because of a super stressful season. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to experiment just dropping your calories by 300 because of course she's also very petite. So when you're shorter, you don't have as many calories to work with. There's a much smaller window. So even people are saying like 1200 calories is not that, no one should be eating 1200 calories. Well, some people are short enough to where that's about their calorie deficit. That's not their maintenance. Now, we don't want people living in 1200 calories, but that possibly could be very close to what their calorie deficit at a 15 to 20% or 25% deficit would look like. So I think the real reoccurring theme for today is being like 5 weeks in, I'm premenstrual, I'm feeling the tug, I'm feeling the like kind of fatigue that comes with it. So there's partially the premenstrual thing I think plays a role. And I think one of the things that I also was thinking about adjusting is that when you know your cycle's about to start, because hopefully you're tracking it. Some people, if they have IUDs or some other things that play into that, it's a little bit harder. But for those of us who don't take any birth control or don't have any IUDs or whatever, and we are monitoring our cycle, like you kind of know that like, okay, there's a certain window where I potentially might need to have more calories for my sanity because actually close around your period, you do require more calories. It's totally fine. And then knowing that there's going to be a little bit of water weight that comes with that, but also having a little bit of a refeed could just be like something that keeps you sane during that period of time. No pun intended. So I have to like take that into consideration that maybe a little bit of a surplus around my period just for a couple of days isn't going to derail like the whole month. Again, we're collectively looking at a month, several weeks, and it's just kind of again I've still collectively over the last month been in a calorie deficit overall. So things are happening, things are shrinking, especially as I'm continuing to work out. And some cool things too that I'm actually proud of is we have a challenge going on right now, which I actually got like a janky little, not janky, but this little pedometer to kind of test some things out because Oura Ring had some kind of firmware update and like my steps are way lower than normal. And I'm like, dude, I know that like walking about a mile is approximately 2000 steps depending on your stride. I'm like, Oura Ring is not even picking that up. So now I'm kind of like tracking with my Apple Watch, which is old enough to where the battery's starting to kind of die, And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get a basic pedometer and like test out my step goal. And so with our challenge, I have increased my average step count, which is fantastic. So I've still been getting in my workouts and I've been aiming for that 9,000 steps a day, which is definitely an increase from where I was at before. There was a little bit of an adjustment to hit, like to go to jump from 7,000 to 9,000 or whatever. But I was learning that some of that was the impact of my Oura Ring changing. And there was a whole day where it wasn't tracking anything either. So that was a little bit tricky. I also need to get updated, probably measurements and pictures just for the sake of documenting. I like my clients to do that monthly, at least progress photos, because we do get to see changes that are happening, which is nice. So step counts going up. That's great. Weight is still holding strong with like losing it in a good way. Like, it's kind of like you've got the couple of pounds off and you're maintaining that. That's a good sign. So maintaining this, but you can see again, it's just like all over the place based on social events, based on water weight. And no matter what, you still want to be encouraged that it is working. If you're in a deficit for a period of time, it is working. I just have to adjust expectations a little bit. And again, for me, a perfect scenario to work with women would really be to work on getting stronger, not just smaller. But the reality is a deficit is what we need to do, whether we like it or not. That is the way to accomplish a targeted fat loss strategy. Now, of course, as I've talked about before, not aiming for a calorie deficit, focusing on my routines and habits and sobriety, I did have a 20-pound fat loss result. So at some point too, if I have somebody like even myself or a client or whatever who's going crazy trying to stay in a deficit, that's when I'm like, is a deficit the right decision for you right now? It might not be the right decision for you because if it's interfering with your life in a way that's making it miserable, we need to reevaluate that. And another thing is if you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I feel pretty dang good actually. I'm not insecure. I'm not having sex with my husband. I'm not avoiding situations. Yes, maybe my pants feel a little bit tighter than I want, but don't jeans feel tight all the time? Like I just think jeans feel tight all the time. And when you're changing your body composition, that is changing your physique in some ways too. Sometimes you have to buy different sizes of pants or shirts because you're building muscle too. And it's not necessarily that you're getting a bunch of fat on top of that either, but that does play a role in buying new clothes. Like one of my first clients, she had to buy a bigger size of shorts because she grew a booty. So maybe she can take in the waist a little bit or find a pair of shorts that fit a more athletic build. But the reality is that pant sizes or clothing sizes can change too when you are building muscle and your shape is evolving over time. So I think really kind of to round this up is like that's what I do with my clients too is I'm strategizing with them and their personalities and what they're up against because a lot of the times if we're going crazy in a calorie deficit it very well could be that like look, the muscle that you build and the tissue that you grow is going to come from consistently working out and resistance training with a progressive overload program. You need a structured program to follow that fits your schedule that you can show up every single week and do. The next thing is that you're hitting your protein targets on a regular basis. And to me, the protein targets in a maintenance phase are even easier too. And then, your body is going to change with that activity level and such. And so hopefully you're eating enough to build muscle tissue. And even if you're at maintenance, I really feel like maintenance at some point with that activity would probably be a deficit in some ways, right? Without you even trying. Because technically, if we're going to build muscle tissue, we might be talking about a bulking phase, which is actually where you're eating past your maintenance. And we would expect a little bit of fat gain in that. We've got to prepare for that if we're actually bulking, like real bulking is going to put on a little bit of fluff. But if you put on a little fluff, then you go into that deficit and you get rid of it too. And a lot of the times when you are in that surplus, your deficit's going to adjust as well. My fellow friend and coach Jess, like she worked her way up to a really solid maintenance and she's petite and tinier than me. And now her calorie deficit is like is my same deficit basically. So when you start building enough muscle tissue, your deficit numbers are going to change as well. So this is where it can be really I always want women's heads to be in the right space for this because if you shift your line of thinking of stopping chasing this a smaller version of yourself and really start building a stronger version of yourself, that is going to produce the results. That's going to get you the physique that you want. And yes, a deficit. I'm in that mindset right now where I'm like, it just kind of sucks. I'm kind of hating it a little bit. I almost want to go back to maintenance and keep building muscle just because, first off, my body is changing for the better. It is looking better. Yes, I still am a little self-conscious in pictures, depending, but it's all about how you stand and your lighting and everything too. But if I look in the mirror, right, if I see my reflection, I'm not upset about it. Like that's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool. It's like, hey, good. It's just that when you have to be on video or camera or something like that, that's when things get mean. The camera is mean. So I think that's the other thing too, is if I have a client who's not like having a body image issue, then that's something that's really easy to be like, okay, cool. Then we're not going to be in a deficit. But also the body image issue, I want to address it too. It's kind of like there are some gals who are super close to their goal weight. And the reality is like we can't just keep cutting you and cutting you and cutting you. We've got to start building because the shape that you want is going to be from that. And what's beautiful is one of my clients updated her progress photos today, and she is just our golden child of doing it right with a busy family life, mama, pets, work, wife, all the things, right? And just crushing it. Like her muscle mass is amazing. And she's an example for us because at this point, I'm a little bit, just to be transparent, I'm a little bit behind her at this point because I was focusing on sobriety, right? She has been crushing it the last 2 years. And now it's like we're literally sculpting her physique and she's eating food, like eating more than normal, right? We probably can increase her calories a little bit at this point too, because of the how much muscle mass she's getting. And that's the goal is like, I want you to be eating as much as you can to fuel you for your day, to make you feel good and to build the body that you want, because it's going to take years to build the physique that you want. So I just, I hope this resonates. I think it's good to wrap it up here because the reality is that I need to reevaluate how much of a deficit do I want to be in? How much, how fast do I want to do this? Because again, I have basically got 80 days left of a calorie deficit. That's not crazy, but basically about 2 months or so, because I kind of pushed it to like the Cody Johnson concert. But I think I'm gonna keep going with the plan that I have, but I thought I would just kind of walk through that strategy, kind of brainstorming idea, because that's what I do with clients, and that's what we figure out, and that's what we adjust. And that's how we keep people happy, keep them on plan, and keep them encouraged. So, yeah, tired. Okay. So if you have any questions or thoughts or feedback, let me know. This is the real, unedited Amy Fox, and I so appreciate you if you watch this. And thank you. Thank you for anyone who watches my YouTube channel. As as simple as it is, right? Like maybe it'll get fancier, I don't know. But I appreciate it and I hope this is of value to understand the perspective and just see like, okay, yeah, this week kind of sucked a little bit as far as my attitude around it and where I'm kind of feeling as I'm like reevaluating it and looking over the past week and I'm like, huh, okay. But there's a lot of good things. Steps are good, resistance training is good, I'm feeling good. I'm, looking in the mirror, I'm pretty happy and content. Like these are all good things. So I hope that you can see that because this is probably what you'll experience now, and hopefully I can help you do it. So if you want to follow me on Instagram or get into our free Facebook group, I'll of course put the links below. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend or whenever you're watching this. So take care.